So you've had a taste of an academic scientist in the morning, one of the foremost scientists. You've seen the lab, you've seen the passion, you've seen how difficult it is for academicians to deal with society and government and all that. We have a very different leader now. General, can I call you up, sir? Please put your hands together to welcome Lieutenant General P.R. Shankar. General Shankar is also a professor of practice in the aerospace department at IIT Madras. So welcome, sir. Please sit down. Okay, I'm talking to an army man, so I guess. So General Shankar was the Lieutenant General in the Indian Armed Forces, in the Indian Army, head of the artillery. And it's only after I spoke to him for just half an hour and then I went back and studied what artillery is, and I realized that's the backbone of the army, really, in some sense of the word. You know, the depth of it, the complexity of it, and he explained in about 10-15 minutes, how it's a very complicated operation of technology, logistics, strategy, insight, geopolitics, I don't know what all. In general, I'm sure many of us, when we have heard of people and leaders in the armed forces, wherever they are, whichever field of the army, Army and Air Force or Navy, you see a certain discipline, you see a certain authority, the authority with which they speak, the knowledge and the responsibility which they exude. I think there's something unique about this institution that every Indian just accepts. So to me personally, the army is a very holy institution. I grew up in Shimla, we had the Western Command there. So when we had the 71 war, my mother gave me a duty. In Shimla, you've been to the Western Command, right? So there are 103 tunnels for the train to go from Shimla to Kalka. And the Western Command used the railway. Tunnel number 103, the first tunnel as you go out from Shimla to Kalka, was under the hill on which we were there. So my job and a bunch of other young fellows' job was to take roti and sabji cooked by all the women and stand near the tunnel 103, and as the train goes by, it will slow down. And we used to pass these parcels in. So that was our first brush with the army. So to me, it's a great matter of pride that we have a Lieutenant General here coming and talking to us, sharing us with lessons of leadership. Professor of practice now. He brings in a lot of technology, linkages. I think he's marrying defense to academia and academia to defense. I think that's a story in itself, and maybe there'll be lessons in that. There'll be lessons from the army. I think we'll have a rich 1 hour plus with General Ravishankar. Just to give you some background of us, we are about 27 of us here. They are from IITs, ICERs, NITs, centrally funded, and a few other centrally funded government institutions. Largely science engineering, there are a few social scientists as well. The intention of this program is to see how can they be exposed to concepts in leadership and the way so that they can become stewards of their institutions, their disciplines, whatever they choose to lead. And the philosophy with which we have run this program is not tell them what to do, but inspire them by having people come and talk about their life lessons, what they have built, the mistakes they have made, whatever insights they can share. That's with which we run about 15 odd sessions. And yours is really the culmination.
Thank you.
Over to you, General.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Raghuattamara, for this nice introduction. And honored to be here with amongst all of you. I've been with, unlike a normal army man, I've spent the last 7 years of my life amongst a lot of professors here. So I know how you generally are and what you generally are. And, if you all behave like my compatriot from the aerospace department, who's farthest away from me, okay, you might tend to run away from leadership, right? But then that's not the whole story. I spent 4 decades in the army in uniform, and for me, the transition to this kind of an environment has been actually fulfilling and enriching. Like what he said, I am in the business of bridging academia with the armed forces of our nation, which I think is the need of the hour. And we are failing badly as India. I must say so. This transition from failure to success is actually dependent on the leadership which comes from within the academia. And that's where all of you do come in. If you go back and are leaders of your societies, then you can take India to the next level. And hopefully, if I've converted some of you by the end of the day to think of the armed forces, then we are on the way somewhere. Actually, yesterday I was in Pune. I was talking to the Southern Command. I was talking to Southern Command on capability development and emerging technologies and how to bring it there. The very illustrious people amongst them. And it's not that you are not less illustrious, you are equally illustrious, because you're going to teach those guys what to do. Okay. Now, when you look at leadership in the army, because what I'm going to talk to you is leadership in the army, and take what you get out of. And when I finish my talk, then I'm open to anyone and everyone for any kind of a question you want, and it need not be with leadership. Okay? Right. The way I look at it, and the way I felt it, and the way I've lived it, every man in uniform is a leader in his own right. And that's what he's trained to be, first and foremost. And unless you're a leader where you are, you don't succeed in the army. Right? Leadership doesn't come imbibed in a personality. You're not a born leader. There are very few born leaders. I mean, born leaders are people like Gandhi and Winston Churchill and Lord Jesus Christ and Rama and all that. We are all normal leaders, and we are trained to be leaders. And leadership qualities can be trained, you can be imbibed, you can be self-taught, you can be externally taught. My journey to leadership started with this quote in 1977 when I was in the Indian Military Academy. It says, "The safety, honor and welfare of our country, your country, comes first, always and every time. The honor, welfare and comfort of the men you command come next. Your ease, comfort, safety and comes last and always, every time." This was written by Sir Philip Chetwood, Field Marshal Sir Philip Chetwood, and this is engraved in the Indian Military Academy. And this is virtually the motto with which every army officer lives through his life. And I've lived through it. I've not given it up. It will go with me when I die. And if you look at it, this is the crux of leadership. The crux of leadership is that, can you put everyone else above yourself? The day you do that, you're a leader. Right? And the rest, everything comes in place. Okay? And it also comes to our dharma theory. Right? Service before self. Sevo parma dharma. There's an English way of putting it, there's a Sanskrit way of putting it. Fundamentally, it is the same. And why I'm saying service before self and Sevo parma dharma, that is the motto of the National Defense Academy, which I joined when I was 16 years old. And I'm thankful I joined National Defense Academy because I failed in the IIT entrance exam. And I went there. Okay? And I've never looked back from there. Okay. Now we'll talk. What I did actually when I approached this talk today was, I said, okay, what am I going to talk about leadership? So I opened the internet. The first presentation which came on leadership, army leadership, I've just put it in front of you. But that is just giving you a context. Then I'll flesh it out as to what these words mean in the army. Okay, when you look at military leadership is of two varieties. Right? You are at war and you're in peace. Leadership in war is different, leadership in peace is different. You don't fight wars daily, but you live in peace daily, right? The requirements of leadership are vastly different, but the fundamentals of leadership remain the same. Then there's an issue of leadership requirement at a junior level and leadership requirement at a senior level, right? That is something which one has to understand. And as I understand, all of you are at the mid-level, right? You're transiting from a junior level to a senior level. In the army, when you're at a junior level, it's all about small tasks, small groups, tactical organization, attacking, defending, small things. You're expected to execute. You are in the game of being a leader to execute orders, right? You're not expected to think why this order has been given. You're expected to think how to do this order. Okay? Because I keep telling my students, I teach defense technology to my students. I've been teaching it for 7 years now. I keep telling everyone, I said, look, in the army, people, you don't have time to think in action. You either do it or you're dead. Okay? If that is the case, everything is done by rote, everything is done by drill. Everything is done to a level of perfection where you operate a gun, a machine gun, or a missile, or whatever it is, blindfolded. Because if you don't do it as a matter of drill, okay, you don't have the time to do it anymore. You don't need to do it after that. But when you get out of that paradigm of just passing orders and doing everything by reflex, you have to start thinking. And this junior leader, captains, majors, lieutenant colonels, they have to execute and they have to lead men into battle by and large and administer them in peace and look after them, right? So that is where they do these small tasks. But as you grow senior, you look after large systems. You look after national, global, and strategic interests. You're at international level. Okay, when I retired, I was as a Director General of Artillery. Artillery is about 1/6 the army, and I had something like 140,000 people under me, right, and spread all over India. I had 3 establishments the size of IIT under me, all that, and one had to look. And I was dealing with foreign governments, at times pretty reasonably high up personalities. I was myself dealing with the defense minister across the table. Okay, so you're looking at something else. That leadership is different. That leadership makes things happen for everyone to succeed. And that leadership, at that level, you are in the business of being a visionary, right? It's not that I'm trying to be a visionary, but there are so many people who are at that level, who have to envision what's going to happen in the future, right? And make things happen. It's called capability building. And that's what I was talking of yesterday in the Southern Command, how to do capability building for the nation. Okay, like I said, every man is a leader. Everyone knows to lead. The problem with most of us, why we are not leaders, is because we put self before the service. Okay? The moment you say it's a service first, and I have to take care of the service, I have to take care of my system, because in the well-being of my system is my well-being. It's then I prosper. And when my system prospers, because of me, I've led my system into prosperity. Okay? And this is what probably Gandhiji also thought when he said, I should lead India into prosperity or freedom or whatever his thing was. And it is in that was his well-being. I'm now equating someone as high as Gandhiji and his ideals to a normal common military leader. Okay. You know, in the armed forces, the one thing a leader has to be very cognizant about, tactical actions have strategic implications. You might be a very small act which you do, but it has international implications. For example, the First World War started by an assassination of an inconsequential archduke in Europe. Yeah, Ferdinand. That fellow was no one, but it started a domino effect and ultimately ended up in World War I. Similarly, when you go and carry out counterinsurgency operations in Jammu and Kashmir or Northeast or wherever, there might be an odd guy who is trigger happy and who, lets go a bullet. And it could be an inconsequential lady or a man or a child who's, something happens. But it has national ramifications. For many who, you can easily pass it off by saying, oh, it's an inconsequential thing, there's just one death, but it's a death. Okay? And what one has to realize is something very important. What is important? The important thing in the army is not meant to kill people, the army is meant to protect people. Okay? The army is not to kill. So death for us is very dear. Preventing death is very dear. Protecting life is very dear to us. Right? And that's what I think ultimately counts. When I've been through operations, I've been through J&K, I've been in Northeast, I've been in many things. The best thing which I felt as a commander when I was commanding troops was that I could send every man home to his wife and children and his family and his parents. So it comes to the fact that a leader always takes care of his people. If you don't take care of your people, you're not a leader. And when you talk of people in this kind of environment, it's the guy sitting next to you, the guy opposite, guy behind, everything. And that empathy and that feeling for him is important. And that feeling is reflected in the fact it doesn't pay you when you're serving. It has no value. But it pays you after you'll retire. When people still, say, sir, my grandson is born, will you bless him? I can't bless him. That chap is sitting in Rajasthan somewhere in some Dani. Okay? But it's that feeling, it's that camaraderie which comes in. That's more important. Okay. Then of course, the next thing is as you go higher up in life as a leader, you realize strategic actions result in changing lives and fortunes of nations. Okay? Your decision will change people's lives forever. You look at a guy like Mao, okay? He took this great cultural revolution forward, the great leap forward. Okay? What did he do? He exterminated the complete intelligentsia of China. Okay? It resulted in a famine where 40 million people, 30 to 40 million people died. Now that's the difference you have to think when you think, of leadership. Would you be a leader who kills 40 million people without a thought because of you have a great idea? Or would you be the kind of a leader who sacrifices all your ideas to save that one single man, that one single life? You have to think for yourself what you want to be. Okay? And if those of you are thinking, what am I thinking? I'm a professor. Why is this guy talking of death and this and that? You're all in this business somewhere. You have to go back and rethink. Okay. There is something very peculiar to the armed forces. It's called the concept of command. There is no equivalent of this anywhere else. Okay? Look at it. The Prime Minister doesn't command the army. The Prime Minister can order whatever he wants, but he can't command the army. Okay? Modi ji can be the biggest leader, but he's still not a commander. He's a politician. Okay? The concept of command is peculiar to the armed forces, and this is across all armed forces. It's got the power of life and death. Because one order of yours can lead a person to death. You demand life out of a person, and you carry that responsibility with you. Okay, that's why one has to think before you give an order. It forces thought on you. Right? Unlike many people who think, oh, in the army you just give orders. You don't give orders. You think before you give an order because of this. You're the judge and the jury. You're the guy who writes the charge sheet. You're the guy who this thing, and you finally sentence a guy. It's only in the armed forces that the commanding officer of a unit, he has got the capability of sending a person to jail for 1 year without questions, and there is no appeal against that. There is no appeal. And this is inconsistent in our law. That sentence might be set aside due to a technical infirmity, but it cannot be appealed against. That's the kind of power which is given to command. Okay? And very funnily, unless you're in command, you can't exercise that authority. A chap who's higher in the ranks doesn't have that authority. He's got different. But the power to send a man to jail for 1 year is only with that guy who commands a unit. Okay. So that means he's got responsibility and accountability to go with it. He's accountable for his actions. That's why people get court-martialed. For lack of doing a job or for giving wrong orders. So the responsibility is his. The responsibility of action is his. Then it's not there. It also encompasses training, welfare, operational readiness, administration, equipment and man management. All this is mine. When I command a unit, everything which happens is my responsibility. I have to get the equipment, I have to get the ammunition, I have to train this chap, I have to look after his father-in-law, I have to look after his pension cases, his grandfather's pension case. It doesn't matter. I have to look after ensuring that his children have got MMR measles injection. Everything. There is nothing I don't know about that fellow. It is not only I, even my wife has to know. Everything. Okay. So that is something which is very peculiar. And then you get involved in the next thing called maintenance of services, law and order, elections, restoration, all that, only if you're a commander. When I was commanding the area in Maharashtra, in the armed forces, there's an area like here, there's something called Dakshin Bharat area, right, and MGNG area, Maharashtra, Gujarat and Goa area. There's many more like that. Now, I had 3 states under me. Jurisdiction was 3 states, Gujarat, Goa and Maharashtra. The Chief Minister of Gujarat was Mr. Narendra Modi at that time. The Chief Minister of Maharashtra was Prithviraj Chauhan, and the Chief Minister of Goa was Manohar Parrikar. So I had to deal with them for this maintenance of services, law and order, elections, X, Y, Z. When Bombay floods come, I had to be responsible for them. So you are in command. You have the capability to move resources from wherever you can to that place and ensure that thing happens. And nowhere was I taught in my life how to conduct elections. Okay? Nowhere was I taught how to, help people out in flood. Or it's in an earthquake-prone area. So this is what command is in the army, that you are ready to do anything and everything. Because normally in the army you are trained to fight. That's a normal conception. Okay. And then you are supposed to assume command of a situation. When everything else fails, the army comes, the flag comes. And that army commander on the ground takes over. My mind goes back to the time when I was in command in a place called Haflong, highly insurgent area, jungles, everything. So there was an ambush in which about 8 police people and civilians were killed and done by militants. So there was a minister from the Assam listening to come, So I was told, look, it's happened in your area, we would suggest you go and talk and all that. I said, fine, we'll go and meet him. So when I went there first, you know how it is in the civil. There's a minister, ruling minister coming. So there's a retinue of guys coming left, right, center, everyone. Sir, this happened, sir, that's happened, sir, that's happened, sir. And I thought they were all talking nonsense. So, and this was on ground. So then that minister was smart. Okay, he knew that all these chaps were giving him nonsense. So he looked around. Then he saw me. Then I said, can I raise my finger? He said, sir, please come forward. Right? Please tell me what happened. So from that moment on, I assumed command of the situation. Similarly, when a young officer goes into a situation where there's floods and this and that, he might be just out of the academy or a place like IIT. Okay? When you say academy, we talk of the National Defense Academy, Indian Military Academy and all, something like IIT. Green around the years, but if he's in a situation, he has to assume command, and he assumes command by nature. Because by then, he's taught how to assume command. He might know nothing about floods, how to relieve people. He might know nothing about how to handle a law and order situation, but he assumes command by nature, instinct. Okay. In the army, like I said, leadership in the army is conferred by or assigned by virtue of commission. We are commissioned as leaders. The government gives you a commission. The president signs a commission on you. The day you do that, you're a leader. Okay? You are mandated by the constitution and the commission to be a leader. You have no choice, actually. If you're not a leader, don't be in the army, get out. As simple as that. I mean, there's no if and buts in this. You're supposed to influence and inspire people to accomplish organizational goals in peace and war. It's two different stories, but you have to do both cases. Okay? You have to motivate people both inside and outside the chain of command. Right? If you are in a situation where you are confronted with civilians, like I just told you, you have to motivate that fellow to start listening to you. It is not by taking a danda and saying, oh, yeah. No. That fellow has to naturally look at you and say, look, come, please tell me what to do. Because he is not trained to handle those situations. Whereas you are trained. And as you go up in service, this training comes out of you naturally. It comes instinctively for you to do what you're supposed to do. Okay? To pursue actions, focus thinking, shape decisions for the greater good of the organization. And this organization, invariably, the way I look at it, go back to the Chetwood, safety, welfare and honor of the people, safety, welfare and honor of the country. The highest organization, as far as I'm concerned, is India. Everyone else is secondary. And you have to have this clarity of thought. I've dealt a lot in ambiguous situations where you are confronted with political ideologies, varying ideologies. Today it's virulent. Okay? And I come out with a great statement. And I am very clear, whenever I come out with this great statement in public, India first, Modi ji second, or Rahul third, or those chaps have got no value actually, the way I look at it. Why am I telling you this? Because in institutions like this, where all of you come from, you are racked by these problems of politics first. You have your own ideologies. So it's a choice. If you want to be a leader, you have to leave your ideological prism out and say what is good for the nation. And stop looking at what's good for the nation through an ideological prism. The day a leader starts looking at what's good for the nation through an ideological prism, he's not a leader. He's not leading the nation. Right? What is good for the nation? So that's something which is fundamental, and you have to understand this. And I'm sure all of you do understand it. Okay. This is something, the fundamental thing to be a leader, character. Okay, you have to have character. Now, what is character? Everyone knows what's character, right? Everyone has his own ideas about what character is. But haven't our mothers and fathers and sisters and elder sisters and aunts taught us, अच्छा character है, डीला character है. वो एक picture भी है ना, वो गाना character डीला है. We understand that character डीला है. Do the right thing, dharma, sacrifice. You have to get the winning edge. You have to fight against odds. When the odds are against you, you fight. Okay? And you never give up. Marte dam tak. I'll give you a personal thing. I mean, I keep telling this everywhere. Wherever I go, I've said this on YouTube also. You know, in India, 1984 was the time when we inducted the 155 Bofors gun system. After that, for the next 30 years, we couldn't, for whatever reasons. A lot of problems in defense procurement, X, Y, Z. Okay? And defense procurement is probably one of the most complicated things to go through in India, because it's got financial issues, it's got technical issues, it's got political issues and everything. So when I was the Director General of Artillery, I was at one point of time running 7 programs for procurement of gun systems. And the final was that 4 have come through, 4 in service. So I was trying to do something which had not happened in 30 years. So one senior of mine came to me and said, Shankar, yaar, what are you trying? You're trying to procure 7 gun systems simultaneously. You're running 7 programs. One gun system you focus on and get it. That's good enough, because for the past 30 years you've not got. I mean, we shouldn't end up in a situation where we don't get any. I said, why? What's the problem? We should try 7. Something, one at least will succeed. If 2 succeeds, I'm very happy. Okay? No, this is so complicated. You know that sar cut jayega tumhara. So my answer was very simple. Yaar, sar ek hi hai, ek hi baar katega. Dobara nahi katega. Do it. Okay. And I did it. And today we have 4 guns, which has not happened for the past 30 years. Now people are saying, yeah, how did he do it? Okay. And I also, once Manohar Parrikar, across the table we were sitting, the Defense Secretary, X, Y, Z. So, sir, give this order. I said, why should I give this order? I mean, for a gun system. So, look, this gun is ready, everything is fine. And, there was some discussion, everything was going on. And I was the guy who was the odd man out. I was not prepared to talk. So Manohar Parrikar turned to me and said, Shankar, tell me, you're the DGRT, you have to take a call. I said, my call is we don't give an order. Okay, everyone was aghast. Manohar Parrikar said, if the DGRT says the order is not to be given, I don't give it. You people have led me up the wrong path, they'll cancel this order, go. He was quite upset. Then I hung back and I told him, I said, sir, sorry, I disappointed you. He says, yeah, you've done the right thing. I could see it in your face that if I had given this order, it would have been the worst thing for the nation. It's better to wait. Right? You have to have that courage of conviction. Just because some defense secretary or some OFB chairman or some third-rate additional secretary says, ye kar lo, or your director of your institute says, ye karo, you don't have to do it. You have to stand up to your convictions and say, sir, it's not that you want to throw him down. It's not that tomorrow I go and tell Kamukade, you're a lesser human being than me, so I should oppose you. That's not the aim. He is the director, he is the leader of this institution. It's my job to support him. It's my job to support him by giving the right answer, by giving him the right advice, by standing up to those people who are giving him the wrong advice. And that applies to all your, heads. Give the right decision. taking that right, correct decision against odds is important. Right? And of course, in the armed forces, you would necessarily have to take these odds when you know you're going to lose. Everything is gone, but I'll still fight on. And that's how we won Kargil. Young boys who went, right, who said, we will get this against odds. The Pakistanis were right on top. They could just finish us off, but they fought against odds. Some of them never came back. I lost boys in Kargil. Right? That's heart-wrenching, but they fought against odds. And when you fight against odds and get out of it, then you know the world is yours. Okay. Then you have a value system. And this is again something which is very peculiar to the army. It's not that peculiar to the armed forces. I mean, its value system is good for all of us in every society. We are taught to live by it. We have our own values, or family values, or religious values, or ideological values. But in the army, you live by some principles, standards, and you have to have some qualities essential for successful leadership. And these values are fundamental to help people discern right from wrong in any situation. Okay? That is the crux of leadership. God help me to take the decision so that I don't take a wrong decision. That's what leadership is all about. Okay. And then, of course, you have loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, honesty, personal courage. All these are part of this value system. And in the Indian Army, Air Force, Navy, when I say Army, it's interchangeably all these. We are all assessed day and night for this. If you don't have it, you said, I mean, no one is against you, but you will definitely not be eligible for the next level of leadership or your next promotion. But that's part of the story. But fundamentally, a leader has to have all this. And we have to be very clear what is loyalty. Go back to the Chetwood principle. Okay? The safety, welfare, and honor of my country comes first every time. This presentation is available with you people. I leave it. I mean, it's not, right? You can take it. So these are the issues which you have to look. Like I said, Seva Parma Dharma. I learned it at 16 years. I have not given it up so far. Let me put it, I'll give you a personal example. When I was retiring, for all the success I had in, for all the success I had in my service and everything was great and all that, there was a multinational firm which said, will you join us as the Vice President of Southeast Asia? I heard, what does it involve? It involves X, Y, Z, and this is your checkbook. Fill what you want. So I said, what is my value system? My value system says, look, but then if I had to do that, I would have had to do many things. Okay? My value system said I have to work for my nation, for whatever it is worth. So I chose IIT. As simple as that. IIT doesn't pay me even my petrol fare from there to here. I mean, I'm joking compared to what that is. IIT does pay me well, not a problem. But that was pittance. If I had taken that position, I could have probably tipped every guy what IIT gives me every second day. That's part of my tips to people. But you have to have a value system which goes beyond money. And take it from me, after a point in time in life, money is, diminishing returns in life. When economics, my value of diminishing, theory of diminishing returns. money starts having diminishing returns. And this you can take it from me with my experience. I have money which I can't spend. Or I can't take money up. Okay, I can't take knowledge up. I have to leave it behind. The only thing you can all leave behind as leaders is your name. If you are able to go up, right? Sab to nange jate hain bouquet. That's what they do. When you die as part of our rites, you're clean. The whole thing is cleaned up. You go on buka, and in your case nanga, and you're burnt off or whatever. But what is left behind is what you've done here, name. If that is this, people remember you, then you've been a good leader. But you could be remembered for being Mao or Stalin or something like that. That's your personal choice. Okay. And then you need empathy. The ability to experience something from someone else's viewpoint. Because in the army you're in tremendous conflict situations. Tremendous conflict situations. Every day you are in a conflict situation. Not actual conflict, conflict of interest, conflict of everything. So you need to understand what that fellow feels. Okay, if you put it in what it is in the army, or rather in, say, in war, you have to understand what that enemy is doing. You have to know what that enemy is doing to defeat him. If you sit everything and do everything from your own viewpoint, be rest assured you're going to lose. Forget being a leader, you're going to lose. You want to be a leader, put yourself in the other guy's shoes and talk and think. Okay. That's what it is. Ability to identify and enter into other person's feelings and emotions. And the desire to care for and take care of soldiers and others. And others. When I say others, it's people whom you are dealing with. It could be your students. It could be your, if you're a warden in a hostel, it could be their health. It could be water. It could be whatever you want. But you have to take care of them. Again, go back to Chetwood, the second line. The safety, welfare, and honor of the troops you command comes next after the nation. Because you have to take care of them. Okay, then you have something called the warrior ethos. The sentiment which is internal to soldiers that represents the spirit of the profession of arms. I mean, I don't expect all of you to get into that, because then you'll go and keep fighting with everyone. But something which is innate in you, that you fight for a cause. There's a cause for which you have to fight. You have to take up that cause, whatever that cause is, and you have to lead that cause. It's not necessary you're at the forefront of that cause. But if there's someone else who's got a better way of looking at life and he's at the forefront, help him. That's also part of leading. Part of leading is being with someone at his time of crisis. Okay, then there are a whole lot of other things which come in. Presence, military bearing, commanding presence. You project a professional image of authority. Right? Okay, physical fitness, very important. Every leader, I mean, people don't understand this. If you are a leader, you have to be physically fit. You have to be, the first start of physical fitness is good health. Show me one leader who's made a mark or a difference in society by poor health. If a leader has poor health, invariably his decisions will be wrong. And he'll die. He might have the best health, he'll die. Unless a chap has longevity of life and he is able to live healthily, he can't be a good leader. And this is true of anyone. Whether you talk of our present, Prime Minister, or you talk of Gandhiji, or you talk of Winston Churchill, or you talk of anyone. I mean, you take all the leaders you want. They had good health. So you have to take care of your health. So if you have to take care of your health, which I think is very important for all professors, Okay, because you are doing largely sedentary duties, right? And that's the demand of your profession. You have to devote some time for your personal health. And you have to devote that time of yours for your personal health, not for your students, not for your organization, all that is later. Let me start first for your family. Would you like to have your family where you're suffering from health or lifestyle disease? See, you can't stop cancer from coming. You can't stop from many things. But you can definitely delay heart attacks, diabetes, blood pressure, all that. If you think diabetes and blood pressure will be cured by meditation, then you're living in a fool's world. Then you're not worth the professorship you have. Okay? If you think you're going to get your diabetes, all your lifestyle problems, etc., Y, Z, by going and sitting in front of Baba Ramdev and doing all these bloody monkey tricks, you forget it. You cure it by having a good lifestyle of your own. Having a good food ethos, a work ethos. You go for a walk in the morning, whatever you want to do. Positive thinking. Fundamental things like weight control. I mean, I'll give you again, I can tell you out of my personal experience, my mother and father both are chronic diabetics. Okay? And if you are a diabetic in the army, you would get thrown out. I mean, you don't go up. So I knew I was prone to diabetes. Okay? So I ensured that I didn't have diabetes till genetic factors took over. And how did I do that? So every morning I used to go for a walk, I go for a run. Till as late as when I was 62, I used to go for a run. And I miss it now. I can't go for a run because things don't permit. But you go for a walk, run. You imbibe this quality with your children. Your children will take up exactly what you do. Okay, so as a leader in your house, you have to decide whether you want to have a happy family or an unhappy family. And that happiness and unhappiness of your family depends on your health. You maintain a good healthy and good lifestyle, okay, you will be richer because you don't have to contribute to the medical profession. You deny him, okay, and and it gives a positive thing for your children also. They'll start thinking positive. Look, if you have stomachache, you have backache, you have some headache, how can you think straight? It's a very fundamental thing, isn't it? You can't teach straight, you can't teach anything. Half the time you're in bed. So get out of that thing. Then you have to train yourself. It comes something within. Then, of course, confidence. Certainty to succeed against odds. Resilient. And this is again something very important. In life, you go through a lot of shocks. It's a lifestyle, right? And in the army also you go through a lot of times when you are down and out, but you have to get back. That never say die attitude. Okay. And don't be worried about failure, because failure, I think, is good. If you succeed without failure, you're definitely bound to fail. But if you succeed through failure, you'll ultimately succeed. Then you need to have professional competence. All this, domain knowledge, tactical, technical, situational, specialized, all this. I mean, this is just pure English. But let me tell you, in the armed forces, if you have to go up in service, you have to be very professionally competent. I'm not an engineer, okay? I barely got 55% in higher secondary. That's it. Maths was my weakest forte. What am I doing here in IIT? Teaching defense technology in aerospace department. This is a question I'm often asked. That's because the army trained me through this. When I entered the artillery, they made me do courses. They said, you don't know maths? I don't know. Learn. They put my head down and made me learn. So I learned. Then I suddenly realized, oh yeah, I did know maths. I mean, I have an aptitude for maths, which I started realizing when I missed IIT. That's okay. So let's get on with this in life. So did that. Then I did a MTech equivalent course when had 5 years of service. That was not enough. I did another MTech equivalent course at IIT Girinagar, Institute of Armament Technology. Then I went and did an MPhil course in defense studies, then another MPhil course somewhere else. I ended up with 6 degrees. I mean, those days, many of these, we never used to get degrees. These days, everyone. So if I were actually had got degrees for all this, I would have had two MSc weapon technology courses, AOR and all that, and 2 MPhils and what have you. So you study hell of a lot. So you get a weapon technology degree and you get a defense studies degree and you get, I went all the way to USA to learn about defense management. So where is management, where is, other studies and where is this thing? So your exposure becomes huge. Right? So you have to study. The thing with bureaucracy and everyone is, that fellow passes his IAS exam, he becomes, district commissioner, not even district commissioner, whatever collector. And he is very happy. After that, that's the last time he studied in his life. Till he becomes, he could become secretary. For him, it's experiential. Whereas in the armed forces, it's through knowledge gaining. You could have a different orientation, you could have different walks of life. But if you have to go up in the leadership thing as an armed forces officer, you have to have professional competence. And that's what has enabled me to teach here and guide a lot of professors to what they're doing. Even here, I'm dabbling sometime in aerospace, sometime I go and dabble with people in computer science. And in fact, Dr. Kamakoti only brought me here. He said, sir, you please come and join IIT. I said, what will I do here? He says, whatever I'm doing, you do. Well, he's doing something different, far more than what I'm doing. But the fact is that, this whole knowledge which I got from the armed forces, I'm putting it here. So knowledge. Luckily, all of you are in a profession where you are tuned to learning. You're tuned to teaching. The challenge is, how do you take this to the next level? The challenge for all of you is, how do you take this to the next level? Do you, I'm of the opinion that in a place like IIT, you need to have different kinds of guys. You need to have a set of people who focus on the core subject, go deep into that, and learn and research, because you need to have fundamental scientific knowledge or core knowledge of the business you are in. There's no harm, you go into depth. Equally, there's a requirement for many in this society of yours to have that kind of knowledge that, okay, you have knowledge, you know where to tap the wells of knowledge, but you have to take that knowledge off and take it into society. And this transference of knowledge is important if the country has to grow. That is what is the crux of your leadership in your environment is. How do you take the knowledge which you have? How do you take the knowledge which is there around you? And how do you convert it for the greater good of the country? If you can do that, you've done it. And that's what I'm trying. Okay, he will tell you, we're into a project called for the ramjet technology, right? And which doesn't exist today anywhere in the world. Not that ramjet technology is new, it's an old thing, it has been there for the past 1 century, but the way we are doing it is something new. Why? Because a set of professors here have great knowledge of a particular thing. So we are drawing from that well and giving it to society, to our nation, to get something big. So you have a choice of being the most knowledgeable in one thing or being knowledgeable amongst many things. But at the end, how can you make this as a contribution to society is important. So let me give you another example, which I mentioned when I first met Mr. Raghuttama Rao. And I keep quoting this to everyone. I had a lot of interaction with Dr. Abdul Kalam when he was my boss in DRDL, Defense Research Development Laboratory. And he was those days Dr. Abdul Kalam, director. He was not president and all that. I knew him then. And I used to go sit across the table and talk to him. And I had no clue about missiles, all that. And he made me the coordinator for the Agni missile launch, first Agni launch in India. He said, Shankar, you coordinate that. I had gone there as the Army rep for Project Prithvi. And my guy who was sitting next to me was Dr. V.K. Saraswat. Today is a member of Niti Aayog. Okay. Anyway, that's a thing. So, everyone talks of Abdul Kalam as a great man, all that. What did I find in Abdul Kalam? And I told the story earlier. Abdul Kalam was not the best scientist India had. He was not the best guy who designed airframes. He was not the best guy who knew propulsion. There were others better than him. That's my opinion. It's not only my opinion, it's the opinion of Mr. Sivtanu Pillai. Because what I'm saying is, this is an outcome of the discussion Sivtanu Pillai and I had when we were traveling from Chennai to Hyderabad once in a flight, long back. And he said, yeah, I agree with him. Then I thought back and all that. Then it struck me. In 1982-83, there was a World Cup, Football World Cup, in which Belgium came to the semi-finals. Okay? And Belgium no one expected them to come to the semi-finals. They said, yeah, pehle round mein haar jayenge. But they came to the semi-finals. They bet Brazil in the losing semi-finalists. And they came third finally. And they had a captain called Jan Keulemans. Now, Jan Keulemans was a good footballer, but he was not the best forward, he was not the best center fielder, he was not the best defender, he was not the best wingman. But he was always there next to the best of his chap to assist him and ensure the goal is scored. He was not the best striker either. And he would always do that right pass at the right time and be there to ensure someone scores or someone defends. He was an 80% man. Right? He was an 80% man. Everyone said he was an 80% footballer. And this I remember saying because the commentator made this comment. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known it. Okay. So there's this 80% rule in leadership. And Abdul Kalam was that 80% man. Despite being not the best in everything, you could tell Saraswat you do integration, you could tell whoever, Bhattacharya of INS systems, you do this, you do this, you do this, because he understood everyone. And ensure the integrated guided missile development program succeeds. So you have to be clear what you are. Very few of us can be what Abdul Kalam was. That's okay. I mean, everyone doesn't have to be a leader of that caliber. Contribute to the system the way you want. Seek if you can do one thing better than what you have done so far in life. Okay. Okay. Then there's, of course, this business of lead, develop, and achieve. You lead, fine, but I think the most important thing is this. It's not enough for you to be a leader. You are a leader only if you can leave someone behind to lead. You have to develop that guy next to you so that the next generation is benefited and the next generation is benefited after that. Right? Unless you are able to do that, you are not a leader. And we do it in the army routinely. I'm not talking of something, I mean, by now you would have realized, I'm not talking of army leadership, am I? I'm talking of leadership in general, which probably everyone has spoken to you for the past 1 week. But this is what we do in the army. So actually speaking, we don't do much different in the army, do we? We do the same thing. Only the thinking is different. Why? The thinking and the leadership, everything is in the first slide. Chetwood. But today the story, the byline, if you go, oh, colonial hangover, leave it. That's the story, isn't it? Even a prime minister says so. But is it so? That's why you have to probably stand up and say, it doesn't matter who has originated this gyan, view it from what it is worth. If it's worth it, take it, otherwise forget it. Okay, this is probably the last slide. There's this thing, are you a manager or a leader? In my way of looking at it, very simplistically, a manager has resources and material to handle. He administers and maintains and he does control. This is what he does. The leader has the resources, the men, everything. He is the guy to start the process and finish the process. He has to develop capability. No one will come and develop capability for India if India doesn't want to be capable enough. I keep telling everyone when I go, in fact, yesterday also I spoke in Southern Command. And I've told this in front of Mr. Rajnath Singh also. Are the armed forces of India good enough to defend the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the nation? The answer is yes. We have demonstrated it many number of times. Okay? But are the armed forces of India good enough to anchor India's rise as a regional power? There's a long way to go. Okay? And that demands leadership. It doesn't demand management. And leadership is a womb to tomb kind of an exercise. It's just not leadership for this thing. You have to live leadership. You have to dream leadership. You have to breathe leadership. And it comes naturally to you when you assume responsibility, you assume command of the situation. So the thing called command is something which is very important, which many of us loosely use. Okay, so I've done with what I had to talk. So I'm open to all your questions now. Please shoot.